Marcus clenched his tray tighter, his knuckles turning white. "Well, are you deaf too?" she barked, her voice dripping with disdain. The room seemed to hold its breath. Marcus felt the weight of every stare, every judgmental whisper. Mrs. Harrington laughed, a cold, cruel sound that sent shivers down his spine. Marcus felt the sting of her words, each one a blow to his already fragile spirit. As Marcus stood there, frozen in humiliation, his mind flashed back to the life he had left behind. She reached into her purse and pulled out a wad of cash, tossing it at Marcus's feet. But then something inside him snapped. He straightened his back, looked Mrs. Harrington straight in the eye and said, "I may be a waiter, but I'm not your entertainment." The room fell silent. Mrs. Harrington's eyes widened in shock, but before she could respond, Marcus turned and walked away, leaving the money on the floor. The morning after the incident, Marcus dragged himself out of bed, his body heavy with exhaustion and his mind clouded with dread. As he walked into the restaurant, the atmosphere was tense. "Marcus," Mr. Thompson said, his voice low but firm. "My office. Now." Marcus followed him, his heart pounding in his chest. "Marcus," the man said, extending his hand. "My name is David Carter. I'm a talent scout and I was here last night." Marcus blinked, certain he had misheard. I don't sing," he said, just as he had told Mrs. Harrington. David smiled. "Maybe it's time you started." That evening, Marcus stood backstage at the Blue Note, his heart racing. As he sang, he poured all of his pain, his anger, his hope into the lyrics. As he left the stage, David was waiting for him, a huge grin on his face. "You've got to stay focused," David told him one evening as they sat in a small cafe, going over a contract for an upcoming gig. Marcus nodded, though he still felt like he was in a dream. I never thought this could happen to someone like me." Marcus found himself alone in his apartment, staring at a faded photo of his mother, his heart heavy with longing. Over the next few weeks, Marcus poured his heart into writing a song for his mother, his pen moving furiously across the page. He spent hours in a small studio rehearsing the song, his voice raw and filled with emotion. The night of his big performance arrived, and Marcus stood backstage at a packed concert venue, his heart racing. As he sang the song for his mother, the audience fell silent, their eyes fixed on him, moved by his raw emotion. When he finished, the crowd erupted into applause and Marcus left the stage, overwhelmed by the response. "You've done it, Marcus," David said, smiling warmly as they sat in a cozy cafe. "This is just the beginning. You've got a gift, Marcus, but it's up to you to nurture it." Marcus nodded, though he still felt like he was in a dream. I never thought this could happen to someone like me." David smiled. "That's what makes your story so powerful. People see themselves in you. They see your struggles, your pain, and your resilience. And when you sing, you give them hope." Hope. It was a word Marcus had never associated with himself before. But as he continued to perform, he began to see the truth in David's words. Night after night, he stood on stage, pouring his heart into every note, every lyric. And night after night, he watched as the audience responded. Some with tears, others with smiles, but all with a sense of connection. One evening, after a particularly emotional performance, a young woman approached him backstage. Her eyes were red from crying, but she was smiling. "Thank you," she said, her voice trembling. "Your song, it reminded me of my brother. He passed away last year and I've been so lost without him. But tonight, for the first time, I felt like he was still with me." Marcus felt a lump form in his throat. He had never imagined that his music could have such an impact. "I'm so sorry for your loss," he said softly. "But I'm glad I could help, even if it was just a little." The woman hugged him, and for a moment, Marcus felt a sense of purpose he had never known before. This was why he was doing this. Not for the fame or the money, but for the chance to touch people's lives, to make a difference. As the weeks turned into months, Marcus's career continued to soar. He went from performing at small venues to headlining sold-out shows. His music, a blend of soul, R&B, and gospel, resonated with people from all walks of life. But despite his success, Marcus never forgot where he came from. He often visited the restaurant where he had worked, not as a waiter but as a patron. The staff, who had once avoided him, now greeted him with smiles and congratulations. One evening, as he sat at a table, sipping a cup of coffee, Mr. Thompson approached him. "It's good to see you, Marcus," he said, his voice warm. "You've come a long way." Marcus smiled. "Thanks, Mr. Thompson. I couldn't have done it without your support." The manager shook his head. "You did this, Marcus. You had the courage to stand up for yourself, to believe in yourself. That's something no one can take away from you. Marcus nodded, feeling a surge of gratitude. He had faced so much adversity in his life, poverty, racism, rejection, but he had never given up. And now he was reaping the rewards of his perseverance. But even as his career flourished, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. He had achieved more than he ever thought possible, but there was still a void in his heart, a void left by the absence of his mother. She had been his rock, his guiding light, and he wished she could see him now, see how far he had come. One night, after a particularly emotional performance, Marcus found himself alone in his dressing room, staring at a photo of his mother. It was an old, faded picture, but it was all he had. He traced her face with his finger, his eyes filling with tears. "I wish you were here, Mom," he whispered. "I wish you could see what I've become." As he sat there, lost in his thoughts, there was a knock on the door. It was David. "Hey, you okay?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. Marcus wiped his tears and nodded. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just thinking about my mom." David sat down beside him, his expression thoughtful. "You know, Marcus, your mother may not be here in person, but I believe she's watching over you. And I think she'd be proud of the man you've become." Marcus looked at him, his heart swelling with emotion. "You really think so?" David smiled. "I know so. And I think it's time you honored her memory in a way that only you can." Marcus frowned. "What do you mean?" David leaned forward, his eyes shining with excitement. "I mean, it's time you wrote a song for her. A song that tells her story, your story. A song that will remind people of the power of love, resilience, and hope." Marcus felt a spark of inspiration. He had never written a song before, but the idea felt right. "Okay," he said, his voice filled with determination. "Let's do it." Over the next few weeks, Marcus poured his heart and soul into the song. He drew on his memories of his mother, her strength, her kindness, her unwavering love. He wrote about the struggles they had faced together, the sacrifices she had made, and the lessons she had taught him. And when he finally performed the song for the first time, the audience was spellbound. As he sang the final note, the room erupted into applause. But Marcus barely noticed. He was too lost in the moment, too overwhelmed by the emotions coursing through him. For the first time in a long time, he felt at peace. He had honored his mother's memory, and in doing so, he had found a piece of himself that had been missing. As he left the stage, David was waiting for him, a huge grin on his face. "That was incredible, Marcus. You've outdone yourself." Marcus smiled, feeling a sense of fulfillment he had never known before. "Thanks, David. But this isn't the end. It's just the beginning." And for the first time, Marcus truly believed it. His journey was far from over, but he was ready to face whatever came next. With his music, his story, and his mother's memory guiding him, he knew he could overcome anything.